Full thickness, third-degree burns. In February 1992, 79-year-old Stella Liebeck ordered a coffee at a McDonald's drive-thru in Albuquerque. This is the cause: a corporate decision to serve coffee at a blistering 180 degrees Fahrenheit to 190 degrees Fahrenheit, a temperature far exceeding household brewing standards. While her car was parked, she placed the cup between her knees to remove the lid and add cream. The thin plastic cup suddenly collapsed, drenching her lap and sweatpants in the scalding liquid. The process was a rapid, catastrophic thermal transfer. Because her clothing held the liquid against her skin, the intense heat had more than enough time to liquefy human protein structures, destroying the biological barrier in less than 3 seconds. The result was full-thickness, third-degree burns across 6% of her body, including her inner thighs and groin. From a neurological perspective, the most terrifying aspect of this injury is the paradoxical silence of the body's alarm system. Because the heat reached 190 degrees Fahrenheit, it effectively cauterized the peripheral nerve endings responsible for transmitting pain signals to the brain. Mrs. Liebeck's electrical highway was physically melted, leaving her brain unable to process the physiological disaster occurring at the site. From a circulatory standpoint, this massive thermal hit caused immediate localized vascular collapse. Capillaries and smaller blood vessels were seared shut, instantly cutting off the oxygenated blood flow needed for repair. This vascular death meant her body could not heal itself, requiring extensive skin grafting to replace the destroyed tissue. This incident serves as a grim reminder that a few degrees of difference in a commercial item can be the catalyst for permanent neurological destruction. Heat retention McDonald's deep-fried apple pies were notorious for a specific design flaw: their capacity for extreme heat retention. While the golden, bubbly crust often felt manageable, the interior functioned as a pressurized thermal reservoir. This is the cause: a filling concentrated with sugar and starch that possesses a high specific heat capacity. Long after leaving the fryer, the viscous center remained north of 200 degrees Fahrenheit. Customers would bite into the safe exterior, only to release a volcanic mass onto their tongue and throat. The process is brutal. Unlike coffee, this molten sugar adheres to oral mucosa like liquid lead, transferring energy into the flesh for several seconds. This leads to microvascular thrombosis, where the intense heat literally bakes the blood within the capillaries of the mouth. The result is instantaneous blistering and localized necrosis of the oral epithelium. This disparity between the deceptive crust and the lethal core forced the company to switch to baked pies in 1992, fundamentally changing fast food thermodynamics to prevent further neurological and vascular injuries. The lethal 390 milligrams. Lemonade Panera Bread's charged lemonade triggered a public health crisis because its marketing and presentation obscured a lethal chemical profile. This is the cause. The beverage was displayed in self-serve dispensers alongside caffeine-free juices, leading customers to perceive it as a standard refresher. In reality, a single large 30-ounce cup hid a staggering 390 milligrams of caffeine, the biological equivalent of 4 standard cups of coffee. The process of ingestion was deceptively rapid. Because the drink was cold, sweet, and non-carbonated, consumers often downed the entire serving in minutes. This created a bolus effect, where a massive stimulant load hit the bloodstream simultaneously, triggering acute vasoconstriction. Caffeine hijacked the body's electrical signaling by blocking adenosine receptors, forcing the smooth muscles surrounding the arteries to seize and tighten. The result was a sharp, dangerous spike in blood pressure as the heart struggled to pump blood through a suddenly constricted vascular highway. For the peripheral nervous system, this chemical bombardment manifested as uncontrollable tremors and erratic heart rates. Panera finally phased out the item in 2024 after multiple wrongful death lawsuits highlighted how this lack of transparency turned a refreshing lemonade into a systemic medical emergency. Long QT syndrome. For certain individuals, the high caffeine content in these dangerous items wasn't just a risk, it was a biological death sentence. The cause lies in the collision between a massive stimulant dose and a hidden genetic flaw known as long QT syndrome. This is a profound disorder of the heart's electrical recharging system. Normally, the cardiac muscle requires a precise window of time to reset its ions between beats. On an EKG, This is measured as the interval between the Q and T waves. The process began when victims ingested 390 milligrams of caffeine, forcing intracellular calcium levels to spike and dangerously prolonging the electrical recovery phase. The result was absolute physiological chaos. If the heart is forced to contract again before this electrical reset is complete, it triggers a rapid, chaotic rhythm called torsades de pointe. This is not a typical racing heart, it is a total breakdown of organized cardiac circulation. The heart begins to quiver instead of pumping, effectively silencing oxygen delivery to the brain and peripheral organs within seconds. This is why these caffeinated fast food items led to tragic fatalities. The heart's internal wiring simply snapped under the chemical pressure. This wasn't a traditional heart attack caused by a blockage, but a violent, uncontrolled electrical failure. For those with undiagnosed long QT, a single lemonade was a direct assault on the fundamental timing mechanism that sustains human life, proving that what we consume can literally disrupt the electricity of our existence. E. coli 0157:H7. The 1993 Jack in the Box outbreak remains a haunting case study in how a favorite American item, the hamburger, can become a vehicle for a biological assassin. This is the cause. The chain served undercooked ground beef patties contaminated with E. coli 0157:H7. The process began once the pathogen entered the human digestive tract, where it released potent Shiga toxins. These toxins breached the intestinal barrier and entered the bloodstream, specifically targeting the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of the blood vessels. The result was systemic destruction. The toxins forced the body to form microscopic blood clots throughout the circulatory system to contain the damage. However, these clots acted as jagged debris, clogging the narrow capillaries of the kidneys and brain, a condition known as hemolytic uremic syndrome, HUS. This effectively turned the blood into a sludge that shredded red blood cells, leading to organ failure. With over 700 people infected and 4 children lost, this item proved that a single meal could launch a violent internal attack, physically stripping away the victim's circulatory health. Internal temperature. The safety of ground beef depends on a razor-thin margin of exactly 15 degrees Fahrenheit, a threshold that fast food chains often ignored to speed up service. This is the cause. During major outbreaks, patties were pulled off the grill at 140 degrees Fahrenheit instead of the required 155 degrees Fahrenheit. The process at this insufficient temperature is a failure of decontamination. While the meat may look brown and done, the heat has not reached the activation energy necessary to denature bacterial proteins. The E. coli remains dormant, but entirely viable. Once ingested, your body's own temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit acts as an unintended incubator, allowing the survivors to multiply rapidly and invade the intestinal lining. The result is a breach of your primary biological defenses, allowing bacteria to migrate into the sterile environment of your systemic circulation. This is why the 155 degrees rule is vital. It is the only thermal barrier standing between a common meal and a microscopic invader, turning your bloodstream into its next colony. Failure to hit this mark transforms a burger from a source of nutrition into a direct delivery vehicle for vascular infection. Contamination vector. In the 2024 McDonald's outbreak, the danger didn't come from the meat, but from an item perceived as healthy: slivered onions. This is the cause. Fresh produce acts as a stealthy contamination vector because it undergoes no kill step before being served. Onions grow in soil where they can absorb pathogens through their internal vascular system or become tainted via irrigation water mixed with livestock runoff. The process of infection is direct. Without a heating step to destroy cellular membranes, any E. coli 0157:H7 present on the vegetable remains at full biological potency when it reaches the consumer. The result is a terrifying gap in food safety. Once these raw onions are ingested, the live bacteria use microscopic hooks called fimbriae to lock onto the walls of the intestines. In the 2024 incident, this led to over 104 infections across 14 states and 1 death. Unlike cooked beef, which might only harbor dead bacterial fragments, this raw vector delivers a live, aggressive colony straight into your digestive and circulatory systems. It proves that the very items we trust for freshness can serve as a lethal bypass, delivering toxins directly to the neurological and renal systems of unsuspecting victims. Cross-contamination. The collapse of food safety at Chipotle between 2015 and 2018 wasn't caused by bad ingredients, but by a failure in human operation. This is the cause: a systemic breakdown of hygiene known as cross-contamination. In a high-speed kitchen environment, a single unwashed hand or a shared cutting board acts as a bridge for invisible invaders. The process was a biological chain reaction. At one Virginia location, a sick employee worked a full shift, unknowingly transferring norovirus from their person onto fresh, raw ingredients. Because these items are never heated, the restaurant environment itself became an efficient delivery system for the virus. The result was a massive outbreak affecting over 600 people in a single incident. When these pathogens enter your system, they trigger an acute systemic immune response. Your white blood cells flood the body, causing widespread inflammation that can irritate the peripheral nervous system. In severe cases, this inflammatory cascade leads to temporary neurological dysfunction, including intense tremors and extreme lethargy, as the body redirects all energy to fight the invasion. Chipotle eventually paid a record $25 million fine to resolve criminal charges. It stands as a grim reminder that even fresh food becomes a lethal item if the invisible hand preparing it introduces a microscopic toxin directly into your bloodstream. The trans fat-soaked fries, for decades, the dangerous item in fast food, was a hidden chemical weapon used to achieve the perfect crunch. This is the cause. When McDonald's switched from beef tallow to vegetable shortening in 1990, they inadvertently flooded the American diet with trans fats. A single large order of fries back then contained roughly 6 to 8 grams of trans fat, a staggering amount considering health guidelines recommend staying below 2 grams per day. The process inside your body is one of structural distortion. These man-made molecules are shaped in a way that makes them nearly impossible for your enzymes to process efficiently. The result is the formation of arterial sludge. These fats aggressively raise your LDL levels while stripping away good cholesterol, creating a high-speed lane for plaque formation. This process, atherosclerosis, physically narrows the diameter of your blood vessels. Your circulatory system is forced to pump blood through a pipe lined with hardened wax, making the heart work exponentially harder and causing the blood to flow sluggishly. This structural damage to the vascular highway directly starves your peripheral nerves of oxygen, leading to chronic numbness and long-term circulatory failure. While McDonald's finally completed its oil transition in 2008, the legacy of these fats remains etched into the cardiovascular infrastructure of millions of consumers. Illegal adulterant. The turning point in protecting the American public from dangerous food items wasn't a medical breakthrough, but a radical shift in legal definitions. This is the cause. The devastating Jack in the Box tragedy forced the USDA in 1994 to take an unprecedented step. They declared E. coli O157:H7 an illegal adulterant in ground beef. The process of this legal evolution changed everything. For the first time, a microscopic organism was treated with the same legal severity as a poisonous chemical or shards of glass. This shifted the entire burden of safety from the consumer's kitchen back to the corporation's processing plant. The result was the creation of a massive biological shield for the nation's nervous and circulatory systems. This regulation mandated rigorous testing and a zero-tolerance policy for contamination across all fast food chains. By removing the pathogen at the source, the law has prevented millions of potential cases of vascular inflammation and neurological damage. It ensured that the dangerous items of the past can no longer legally exist on a modern menu. Protecting the human infrastructure requires more than individual choice. It demands a rigid, systemic code of conduct. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into the hidden risks of the fast food industry. If you found this medical analysis helpful, please hit the like button and subscribe to stay informed about your circulatory and neurological health. Your awareness is your strongest defense. Stay vigilant, eat wisely, and I will see you in the next breakdown of the science behind your health.